Man, we are live. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Let's Talk Fishing video podcast. My name is Jay Angel. I'm going to be your host for this evening. Tonight, I have a guy who's been on my show several times. Man, I just get excited. I like to talk to guys who live right here around me in the local area. Bassmaster Elite Series Pro, Derek Hudnall from Southern Louisiana. How are you doing tonight, Derek?
Doing fantastic, Jay. How about yourself?
Oh, I'm doing great, even though it's raining about an inch an hour here
Yes,
where,
it is.
where we live.
Yeah, no shortage of moisture outside right now, that's for sure.
But that's Southern Louisiana. This is to be expected. I couldn't believe it didn't rain for 5 months. So
Yeah, I know, right? That's what you get. That's what you get in the South. Hey, if you don't like the weather, give it 5 minutes. It's going to change. I promise. But that is also why no one retires and moves north. No,
yeah,
nobody retires and moves north, especially Chicago, right?
yes, yeah, man. I have so much stuff I want to talk to you about. I'd like to start out with, man. You've been fishing. What was your rookie season on the Bassmaster Elite Series?
2019 was my rookie season, so I qualified through the Bassmaster Opens. Fished them full time for 3 years, all three
Wow.
divisions. And then in 2018, I qualified for the 2019 Elite Series and the Bassmaster Classic in 19. From that was back, the rules were a little different. If you finished in the top three overall in points, all divisions combined, then you got a bid to fish the Bassmaster Classic then.
Okay.
As well as that, then it was the top five in points per division got an Elite Series invitation, and then the top three in points combined overall got Bassmaster Classic invitations then. Now it's since changed. Now it's the Bassmaster Opens EQ anglers. You have to fish all three divisions, kind of the same, and they take overall instead of per division. So it's a little different now, but yeah, I qualified in 2018 for the 2019 season, so I'm entering my fifth year now
Fifth year. Wow.
fifth year. That's right.
So you have survived for 5 seasons now.
I have
You survived
somehow
for four.
survived. Yeah, I have somehow. I don't know how. Sometimes I ask myself, I don't know how I've survived this long because
Well,
this is not an easy gig. So, but yeah, fifth
the,
year.
the the fact that you survived for 4 seasons tells me you have something going for you because you're literally competing against the best bass fishermen in the world,
Mm-hmm.
and you're surviving. Because what is it? The bottom five gone.
No. So it's more than that. Now it's so you have 9 from the Bassmaster Opens come in. Then I believe you have it's 12 total. It's one from the Bassmaster Nations, the Federation Nation. There's another one comes from the Collegiate, I believe. So there's 3 more qualifiers. So there's 12 total. So they're gonna basically drop. I would say the bottom 12, but it all depends on if there are any exemptions. So to not get too deep in the weeds there, it's the number is 100, and they have
Yeah.
to allow 12 people from the outside in every year. If there are people that had medical exemptions from the previous year, they don't count towards the 100, so that could kind of skew the number a little bit. But yeah, I would say an easy number is 12. That'll get dropped every year, but it's all based on your average, on
Sure.
your career average once you're in the Elite Series. I'm going on I'm fifth year in the Bassmaster Elite Series, so after 5 years, you get to drop your worst year and average. So it just makes some of the veterans and people that've been around a little while, makes it a little easier for them to stay in and form a career, and it leaves a little more pathway for guys from the outside looking in to get in. So. Yeah.
Well, we have a comment here from Cajun Rob, a good friend of mine. He says he's happy to see that you're doing the bourbon and bass thing again.
Yeah. He comments on all of them, buddy. I appreciate you. And the bourbon and bass thing is something that just I don't it was never meant to be something to do every week or every other week or anything like that. It was just there are two things that I love. I mean, the people that know me, I love, there's two things in life I love. Well, I say only two things, but I'm really passionate about bourbon. I love bourbons that tell a story. I'm kind of a nerd when it comes to the history and the creations and
Sure.
just where everything comes from as far as bourbon side. Then I love bass fishing, so I kind of just merged the two together. And it was never meant to be a weekly or a bi-weekly thing. I just every now and again when I have a bourbon I want to talk about, or this past one I put out, I really didn't care much about the bourbon that I was putting out at the time, but it was something
Sure.
that I really wanted to talk about. So, and I just kind of merged the thing to two together. It doesn't have a ginormous following, but I have several people that watch it and they look forward to it. But good things come with time, so I kind of space them out. I think the one that I did last week was the first one I had done, and I don't know, it's probably been 4 or 5 months or so. So when I have something that I think's worth relevant talking about both sides, that's what I talk about. That's just a selfish, kind of a selfish thing about myself. There's just two things that I love, and maybe there's some people out there that love the same thing. But I'm not out there to get just a bunch of followers. That's not what I'm trying to do. Because if I just wanted
Sure.
a bunch of followers, then I would call it like boobies and fishing or something. Because everybody would want to watch that. That's just not what I'm about. It's just something, a couple of things that I love, and it's done well. And it's really cool all across the country that I go to. The comments and the people that stop me and say, "You're the bourbon and bass guy," and there's a part of me that's I need to do more of them, but the other part of me says it was never meant to be a really regular thing, just every now and again. But thank you, Rob. Yes, he comments on everything. Appreciate you.
He sure does, man. Rob's a great fan. He just said that he lives about 45 minutes from the Buffalo Trace Distillery, speaking of bourbon.
Oh my gosh, man, that's yeah, talk dirty to me. Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
good that's a good part of the country to live in up there.
Yes. Also, it's great bass fishing.
It is.
It's not
Yeah,
very far away from a lot of the TVA reservoirs, and he's always in there.
exactly. A lot of TVA waterways around that area, so that is not a bad country to live in if you're a bass addict like we are.
Yes. Speaking of bass fishing, you're going
Mhm.
to be on Toledo Bend here in a couple weeks.
Yeah, I was just there last week. The first tournament of the 2024 Bassmaster Elite Series season starts on Toledo Bend in our home state of Louisiana, which I cannot say that's happened not since I've been on the Elite Series, but I think 2016, I believe. I don't think they started there. I think they started somewhere else, but they haven't been back to the state of Louisiana since then, since before I qualified. So it's pretty cool not to start in Florida. Every single year that I've been on the Elite Series, we have always started St. Johns River, Harris Chain, Okeechobee. From there to Seminole. Somewhere down there. So it was, and I was saying this during the season last year, even the beginning of the season, like we need to start somewhere else in Florida, just and the locals and the people that know Florida fishing tell us every single year that we come to the Florida at the absolute worst time of the year to come every single year.
Oh,
That is not
no.
a lot of fronts come in. These fish are finicky. It's just never a good time of the year that time. So we're coming in April. I'm excited about that. We go Toledo Bend, then Lake Fork, then we have a little break. We have the Bassmaster Classic, and then we're in Florida for two back to back in April, which that hasn't happened like ever. April in Florida, St. John's River and Harris Chain. Those are going to be
Ooh,
really
good.
interesting. St. John's Rivers just hasn't been in good shape. John Cruz, one of my travel partners and good buddy, won
Sure.
it 2 years ago when we were there. It's that place has just really struggled for vegetation, and it's taken on just some bad turns. So I hope that one can be good enough for the fans and ourselves as fishermen to really figure it out. It's going to be a tough one. And then Harris Chain is always healthy. There's going to be some big bags waiting at that one. So, but yeah,
Now,
looking forward to that. Toledo Bend, Lake Fork, you're going to expect some absolute giant bags.
yes.
Giant, giant, giant bags.
Giant bags.
Yes.
Ooh,
So,
giant bags.
but the weather can be, I mean, we're at mercy of the weather that time of the year. I mean, Toledo Bend can get, I mean, we could have 30-mile-an-hour north winds and snow and sleet and freezing rain like we had last week when I was there, or it could be beautiful. You just don't know. But that time of the year, I mean, it's kind of Russian roulette when you're playing the weather game that time of the year because it can be brutal. But that is the time of the year that the biggest fish are caught
Nice.
consistently year round. So you're going to see some, and people are going to see some. Everybody who watches is going to see some absolute giants caught that time of year.
So Toledo Bend in February.
Yeah.
Boy, are you going to be at the backs of the river and streams?
I don't know. I'm going to be wherever the fish are. So I don't know. Toledo Bend. Look. I have a lot of history there.
Yes.
I do not know it like a lot of people think I do. I've had some really good derbies up there. I used to spend a lot of time on Toledo Bend, but the old Toledo Bend. I mean, Toledo has changed so much. It's just over the last 10 years. 2016 was the last time the Elite Series was there, and they absolutely throttled them. That's when KVD was offshore throwing a big 10XD and won that tournament. But or no, I'm sorry, that was the time before John Murray won the last one. So that was right when the grass had died off in Toledo Bend. So Toledo Bend, back when I was young and I was coming up and fishing BFLs and all of that going up there. It used to be full of hydrilla, like full of it.
Yes.
I mean, the hydrilla would mat up in 12, 15, 18 foot of water back in history. I mean, it was just everywhere. But they killed it.
Oh,
It took about 4 or 5 years. They finally killed it all. And that year that KBD won, the weights were just insane. And it was the fish had nowhere to hide. So it was labeled the number one bass fisher in America. They killed all the grass and they exposed what was there, what that habitat created. And the fish had nowhere to hide. And it was so good for about 16 to 18 to 24 months because the fish had nowhere to hide. And then eventually they all got caught. People started eating them, and in the last, for 5 or 6 years after that, it took a downswing. So now the grass is coming back. Started coming back last year or year before last a little bit. Last year a little bit more, and then this year it's still not where it needs to be, but there is a pretty decent abundance of hydrilla back in it. And if they will leave it alone and let that ecosystem and habitat kind of take foot again, then that place will be back where it should be. I mean, that's just too good of a fishery. It's too good of, too historical, but I mean, the grass, they need to leave the grass alone. They didn't spray it last year. They never killed it, which is a good thing. So I spent last week on the water there, and I spent about a month before that. I did a lot of riding around just to kind of see what areas it was in. I don't know that it's going to be a giant player in our Elite Series tournament. I think it will be for some people, maybe from here to there, but it's really not where it needs to be. More main lake and flats and stuff like that, where it really needs to be a player for fish to stage up on. But Toledo Bend's it's coming back. If they'll just leave the grass alone, stop spraying it, don't spray it, just leave it alone, let it grow, and that fishery will explode like it has before in the past.
that sounds like a lot of fun.
It can be, yes.
Boy. So in February, are those bass going to be looking for pre-spawn, post-spawn, spawn, all three of the above?
No. It won't. It'll be pre-spawn at best. That's too early for those fish to spawn up there. Traditionally, you're looking. Traditionally they start. I'm going to say the first week in February is kind of okay. There might be a couple if you get decent weather. I'm sorry, March. Second week in March, you kind of get that first good wave coming. And this is just historically. Now, not to say that that time of the year we show up there and all of a sudden we get a week of warm weather and some fish try to move up, because that's possible. I mean, that can happen. But the other caveat that a lot of people aren't thinking about is the water is still very, very low in that place right now. So that water needs to come up. It needs to come up. It needs to come up to full pool or close to full pool. I think it was on. So full pool in that place is like 172. It was sitting on like 168 and some change when I went when I went last week. It needs to come up. It's kind of like and some people that are listening are familiar with, like, Rob might be, that fishes TVA lakes. I don't care what kind of weather or how warm you get. Those fish don't spawn until that water comes up into summer pool.
Okay.
I'm not going to say that no fish will spawn until Toledo Bend comes up to summer pool, because there may be some, but those big waves of spawners are just, So I didn't mean to get off on a tangent, but that's just really, it's early. I know spawning. No, I'm gonna go ahead and say no. There won't be any fish spawning. Some fish starting to set up. If we get some warm weather, 3 or 4 days of warm weather and the water temp gets up in the 60s or so, which is far fetched for that time of the year, but you could see some getting up there shallow and starting to look around. But no, I do not expect that one to be a spawning tournament. Lake Fork is, we go to directly after that. So that one, a little bit more possibility. There may be some, but I still think that's just too early. We're still going to be looking at cold temperatures. You're going to be looking at pre-spawn, people throwing big baits, big swim baits, and giant bags. That can be assured, as long as the weather will cooperate with us a little bit.
So with pre-spawn at Toledo Bend, do you think anybody's going to be Carolina rigging?
Yes, sure, yeah. I mean that's always a staple at Toledo Bend, always has been. It's a kind of a I love to throw a Carolina rig.
Oh yeah.
It's very it's very effective, especially that time of the year. But we live in the age of the live scope now. That
Yeah.
I hate to say it's a dying breed, but it kind of is. Everybody wants to just flash around and look at them now. But Carolina, yeah, absolutely, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it could be any of the above. Your main lake points and flat
Well,
slope areas in the last deep water before you get to the backs of creeks. That's traditionally how you would look for those fish that are starting to at least think about getting to the backs and getting to the areas or close to the areas that are going to want to spawn in.
that is just so exciting, though. You're thump, 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 and you
Yeah,
don't know if it's a 10-incher or a 6-pounder. It's
it
just,
could be either or bigger, especially in a place like Toledo Bend.
yeah,
So
bigger. I'm just talking my own experience. I've never caught anything
yeah,
that big, but
well, I mean, you never know.
it's so much fun because
It
it
is. It is.
just gives me an adrenaline burst. And you're reeling down, reeling. You got to be so careful.
Yeah, yeah. Gosh, it could be just so many different ways that tournament's won. Um, but especially pre-spawn that time of the year where those fish will be located at the depth range. Knowing like the shad patterns and stuff there. Electronics are going to play a big part. I think you're going to see some big swim baits, big spoons, catch some big fish. For both of them. Toledo Bend. Toledo Bend is just a bigger version of Lake Fork. Lake Fork's only, I think it's 36,000 acres. Toledo Bend's 188,000 acres. I mean, Toledo Bend is massive. That is a big body of water. And people really that's never been there can't really justify or can't really wrap their head around how big that place really is. Brian Schmidt, who's one of my travel partners, he's several blue trophies in his case, and he had never been there before. All the years he's fished FLW, so he came up with me last week, and I told him going into it, I said, Brian, this place is a lot bigger than you think it is. I said, you're just not going to be able to break down this entire lake in a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks. It's just too much water. And after his first day on the water, he looked at me and he said, "You were right." He's like, "This place is just so massive. There's so many places they can be, and that's why about a fishery like this can be so productive at times, just because there's so many places for them to be, so many places for them to hide, um, and then that's why this place should always be good. But it need the vegetation, we need the ecosystem back, but it'll get back."
You know, to our viewers, one of the things I love talking to Derek about is presentations. He has a way of breaking them down. And I had literally been wacky rigging for since 1998 when I first threw the Bass Pro Shop Sticko. It was my primary presentation I used when I was guiding, and he broke it down in ways, and he told me things I didn't know about it. And I thought, I've been doing this for so long and done it so often and fished it so hard. I guess I got a little arrogant, and actually I got kind of humbled. But what I'd like to talk to you about is, Derek and I both fish in a body of water called the Henderson. It's probably a 45-minute drive from where I live.
Mm-hmm.
Another big body of water with all kinds of different things you can do. One of my favorite ways to fish there is to throw a smaller jig
Mm-hmm.
with something like the baby D bomb on it.
Yep.
Throw throw that right in me. I throw it everywhere there. One of my favorite things to do is bounce it off a cypress tree, or if I know that a bunch of cypress knees are there. Man, why don't you talk about that a little bit? Shallow. Oh no, we lost them. That's horrible, guys. I was just talking. I'm just going to get him on going on one of the things I love to talk about there. Talk to Derek about. Don't know why I lost him, but I do know why I lost him. There's a big thunderstorm going through here tonight. It's been going on all day long. And Derek and I like to both. Well, Derek grew up fishing the Henderson. It's if you've gone through the state of Louisiana on Highway 10, right after you get west, about 25. There he is. He's back.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know what happened. I just lost you.
Yeah. I don't know. Well, it probably has something to do with the. Okay, so we were talking about smaller jigs with a baby.
Yeah. I'm not. I don't know. I'm not gonna. Necessarily a smaller jig, but just jigs in general. So what people need to understand is, when you throw a jig, what are you trying to do? When I'm throwing a jig, I'm looking for a big bite. That's just what I'm doing. It mimics a crawfish, a bluegill, whatever have you. But look, the biggest fish in the lake, when I really want a big bite, especially before, this forward facing deal. I mean, that's what people did. You watched it for years. They picked up a big jig and they wanted a big bite or a jig. It has bigger profiles. So I mean, especially right now, this is the time of the year you are going to catch the biggest fish you're going to catch all year on jig.
Yes.
And so you have to ask yourself why. Why is bigger females do not exert as much energy as a 10 or 12 or 14-inch bass running around trying to feed. They just don't. They are more selective on the bait that they eat because they need something that requires less energy that's going to give them a higher protein. So that's why a bigger profile bait, I'm putting a jig into that category. So, but anything in general, a big jig, a big swim bait, anything like that, that's just, they don't have to exert as much energy to go chase after it and eat it. And they just don't have to feed as much as a smaller bass does just to survive. So that's, why, in my mind, that's what I've always thought about when I'm throwing a jig or trying to flip a jig, whether I'm swimming it or I'm flipping it in cover. And then you get into the manipulation of, do you throw a smaller jig? If you're going to throw a smaller, low profile jig, then just make sure it makes sense to yourself. Why am I doing that? Am I doing it because I just think the forage is smaller? Is it, if you're throwing around a lot of cypress trees, it makes sense because you don't get hung up as much as a heavier jig.
Yes.
And then you go up north, and I will throw a jig, especially a smaller jig up north for smallmouth because it's kind of the situation. So it's the same situation, but I can't go up there and throw a 3/4 ounce jig with a full size D-bomb on the back of it up there because the smallmouth just can't fit it in their mouth. I mean, a 5-pound smallmouth can't fit a bait that's that big around in their mouth. They just can't. So a smaller downsized jig, maybe with a baby D-bomb can work well, especially around the cypress trees down south because it's just not going to get hung up as much. And then
Sure.
up north because the smallmouth just absolutely hate it if you get anywhere around them. So, when you start manipulating sizes and colors, just make sure you understand or make sure you're wrapping your own head around why you're making that change or making that adjustment. So, but yes, jigs, I hate to say, another dying breed, just simply because it's just a different game now. But I can promise you there will be one, if not multiple, on my front deck at Toledo and Lake Fork as well, because I love to flip a jig, and there's nothing better than cracking one of those big ones on a jig out of a lay down or a top or grass or anything else. Yeah, grew up a jig fisherman. I will be for life, and it's something that's near and dear to my heart for sure.
Well, you got a lot of those guys like me and you. I will throw a jig just because, yes, I love the feel of something smashing
Yep,
a jig.
absolutely.
Thump, thump, thump.
It's just something personal. That's it. It's just a personal feeling. And yes, but again, lots of jigs out there. You have to dictate to yourself whenever you're going to throw it and why you're going to throw it, and don't just throw it just to throw it. Make sure it makes sense to you. So
it does make sense to me, and I've always thought, now maybe I was wrong about this, but I've always thought that once the water temperature hits about 90 degrees, the fish are going to go after something a little smaller. Maybe I was wrong.
uh, you know, again, this is the awesome thing about bass fishing, the sport that we're in, is that everybody has an opinion. Everybody
Sure.
has something that makes sense to themselves, and none of them are wrong. If you
Yeah.
have confidence in it and you can convince yourself, I'm going smaller because it's the summertime, then don't let anybody talk you out of it, Jay. Don't
Yeah.
let anybody that is if that is what you're confident in, then you go do it. And it don't matter if Elite Series Pro Derek Hudnall or Kevin Van Dam tells you never to do that again. If that's what you're confident in, you need to do it. I don't care who tells you otherwise. So
And yes, I have caught fish doing that in the summertime, and that's why
I'm sure you have, and I'm sure
that's
you
why I
have.
continue to do that. And I've caught it on the Henderson, which I haven't figured out that body of water yet. I'm working on it. I think it's a tough body of water to catch fish on.
Yeah, I mean Henderson is a part of the Atchafalaya Basin swamp. It is
Yes.
a massive, massive, massive spillway delta. I mean, Henderson is kind of the upper end of it. That's where it starts, and then it goes down from there. So
Yeah.
Henderson is kind of a lake within itself. You can still get into the Atchafalaya River. Henderson is not a great fishery, Jay. It's just not. It's just not absolutely slap full of bass. A lot of people do a lot of sac-a-lait fishing there, catfishing. I mean, it can be certain times of the year, but you have to fish that place based on the water movement.
Yes.
If the water is falling, it's going to be better. I like to fish it when it's high. Nobody likes to fish it when it's high, but I do. You just have to. It's all based on current, and it's all based on you need next time you go fishing there, make sure the water's falling. You get
Yes.
falling, you get some current in that place. You can kind of dictate and figure out where they're going to be more than anything.
It seems.
Vegetation's there some years. It's not other years. And it fluctuates based off of the Atchafalaya River. Atchafalaya River dictates the water level. So you need to pay attention to the gauges. Especially when you go to Henderson.
I do pay attention to those gauges since I happen to work for USGS. So
There you go. Exactly. So yeah, pay attention to the gauges, and that's kind of how you have to fish it. And it's like anywhere else. It has good years and bad years. It hadn't been real great the last couple of years, but about 3 or 4 years, it was doing really well.
it seems to me if I can find a true bank where I can sit there and look at the bank, and that is really a bank, I can catch fish as long as the water's moving.
But yeah, I mean that's a good combination. That's low and falling. Yes. It concentrates them, it puts current, gets them active. You can kind of guess where they're going to be. So yeah, yes, I mean that would be the ideal time to fish really any body of water, not just Henderson, but any body of water in general whatsoever. Low, falling, water movement, and the fish are you're going to be able to see where fish are going to be sitting. So Henderson again, part of the people that are watching that don't know, that's the Atchafalaya Swamp, the Atchafalaya Basin, and that's just the extreme upper end of it. So it's can be fun for sure.
And that's really where I've been working on fine tuning my jig presentations.
Mm-hmm.
While the Henderson and some of the other small bodies of water like 2 o'clock Bayou, Half Moon Bayou.
That's right. Yep.
Been doing a lot of jigging the last couple of years just because I want to learn how to do it. I didn't do a whole lot of that up north. Just I think why I fished for a lot of smallmouth.
I understand.
And also the bass up there were just they're different up there. They like to school up, and if you get a weightless wacky rig around shallow water structure,
Mm-hmm.
when I'm guiding, I want to catch 15 bass. I don't want to catch them. I want my customers to catch them.
Absolutely.
Weightless wacky rigs. I just didn't have much of a chance to really experiment when I was guiding. So yeah,
Right.
I think that really threw my bass fishing back, and it didn't throw it back. It just kind
Yep.
of stopped forward progress.
Understood.
I got really good at wacky rigging, but that's not enough.
Never is.
I don't fish tournaments, but still I just want to become the best fisherman I can possibly be.
I understand. That's right. Well, you have the right mindset, so keep after it.
Oh yeah, I'm going to keep doing it. And one thing I've learned, if I want to learn how to jig, I'm only going to bring jigs when I fish.
That's yeah. I mean, yeah, you want to hone in a technique, just remove the other possibilities off the table. So
Because I know that you're the wacky rig guru. So if I have a wacky rig, I have a hard time. I get tunnel vision
yeah, that's all of us, not just you.
because I know right there, man. If I cast it right there, I'm confident I can catch something right there with.
Right.
If you see some prime real estate in the water and you just know, wow.
And you have to know. I mean, just like with anything else, you have to know when to pick it up. And you have to know when to put it down. So,
Yes.
Yeah, it can
I've
be
used,
effective.
I've used. I can't even tell you how many different kinds because every soft plastics, every company that makes soft plastics makes their own wacky worm. When I first saw the 48, actually it was your buddy Lucas
Yep.
who introduced me to the 48. And I looked at that thing. Oh my gosh, there's something different. I'm in love.
You know, it is, and it's done very well for me, and not just for me, but for a lot of people. So yeah, it's 48 because it's 4.8 inches long, so it's a little shorter than your typical 5-inch stick bait. It's a slower fall. It has an enhanced wobble to it as it falls, and it's just if there's one sitting there, if you're under 2 foot of water, yeah, if you're under 2 foot of water, that thing's deadly for sure.
Yes, I like that. And
Yep, for sure, man.
yeah, I can't say enough about it. I was at a loss for words there for a second. That doesn't happen very often.
Yeah. It can, man, it can be. I know you and I have talked about it in a couple of shows, and don't want to bore people with it, but but I mean that people like to, you know,
Well,
people
if you
like
just
to, people like to hear about it because people like to see people with success in it. And I'm going up to Shreveport, Saturday and Sunday for, I'm doing some filming and seminars for Bass University, and they requested me talk about, the weightless wacky worm up there, and I said, hey, what, one of the two seminars, that's what it wants to be on because that's what people they gravitate toward, especially here in the South. So I'll go up there and we'll talk about it up there as well. So if anybody's in North Louisiana or, in the Texas, Arkansas, Mississippi, look up Bass University. We'll be in Shreveport, Louisiana this coming weekend. So I believe it's myself, Greg Hackney, Tyler Rivette, I think Brock Mosley.
ooh, nice, man. There's
Um,
an all-star cast right there.
yeah. There's the All-Star cast, and then they ran out of numbers to call, and they called me. So
Ha!
I'm just fortunate to be on that list. I'm trying to think of who else. But I mean, there's posts everywhere. I posted. Look on my social media pages and Bash University. You'll see everybody who's on there. I think Caleb Summerall's doing one. There's several of them. I think go up there and Lee Livesey. So a lot of blue trophies, a lot of knowledge that'll be going around the Horseshoe. I think it's at the Horseshoe Casino, but look it up. You'll see exactly where it's at. So it's going to be a good time, man. I'm looking forward to it. I think we're doing all day Saturday and all day on Sunday. So
Wow, that's awesome, man. That is awesome. So one thing about what is your do you swap out different kinds of hooks you use on a weightless wacky rig?
swap out? No, I mean not really. I mean the Gamakatsu G Finesse Stinger hook. It's called the weedless Stinger that
Okay,
Gamakatsu makes. It has titanium weed guards. So that is the best wacky worm hook on the planet, just bar none. I have years of trying to perfect, and I still haven't perfected it, but trying to find the correct. I mean, a hook. Everybody makes every hook company makes a weedless wacky worm hook. Most of them, the weed guard is too stiff, and it impedes the hook set penetration to the fish. You will run into problems. That is the number one probably wacky worm fishing problem of wacky worm fishing is people are getting weedless hooks that are just too stiff. So the G Finesse one, the Gamakatsu Stinger with the titanium weed guard, it is very, very limber. It bends right back into place. does not impede the hook set. I know people who are affiliated with other hook companies on the level that I fish that use that hook.
Okay.
It is legit. It is so sticky, and that is the best wacky hook on the planet. I use the VMC crossover ring. A lot of people know what I'm talking about. I'm not affiliated with
Yes.
VMC whatsoever, but it's a crossover little O-ring. It's got a little notch at the top with a little hole, and that's where your hook slides through. It does not impede the hook set. Again, most important part, making sure that the hook does not, there's nothing impeding you putting that hook in that fish. So that comes in, like I use between like a 6 millimeter and a 7 millimeter there. You have to get the little VMC pliers to put them on. Very, very, very pivotal part of that. So yes, a
Yeah.
hook makes it. Do I swap them out? Not necessarily. There are times where I will throw a 6-inch stick bait in really heavy grass or some bald spots in grass that I will go up to a size 2 rather than a size 1. It just depends on the situation, but no,
Sure.
I'm pretty confident in that hook and that setup. Of course, you would love a situation where you just never have to have a weed guard on there, but unfortunately, bass live
Yeah.
around stuff, and stuff, we get
Stuff.
hung up on stuff.
Yes.
So I would love to just throw a regular Gamakatsu stinger hook on it, but unfortunately, just bass don't just live out in the open. They just don't. They don't hang around something, and if there's anything there, you'll get hung up on it if you don't have a weed guard of some
Yes.
sort on. It's just going to happen. So, but that's the juice.
Absolutely. Okay, well, it's about 35 after the hour. Do you have any shout outs you'd like to do?
Man, shout out to Jay Angel, man. Let's talk fishing podcast. That's just what I like to do. I like to talk about fishing. I like to talk about
Yes.
current events and just what's going on in the world. But no, thanks to anybody and everybody who's watched. And man, if I can ever help answer any questions, reach out to me, shoot me a private message. I run all my own social media, so I don't have robots or companies or anybody else running it. So if you get a response from me, it's from me. So if you have any questions, I'll answer them to my best ability. And just remember that this is a sport of, again, like I said earlier, it's a sport of everybody has their own opinion and yours is not wrong. So, make sure you can justify when you make changes, when you pick up something, not just because you're tired of throwing a wacky worm or I'm just tired of throwing a jerk bait. Make it make sense to you, and it'll pay dividends down the road. So, yep, I appreciate you having me, Jay.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate you coming on. I know you're a very busy person, man. Good luck. You don't need good luck. Congratulations on your bass.
I need a lot of luck, but I appreciate it.
But the Bass University, that's a big deal. I'm really happy that you're going up there, and that's fantastic right there.
That's awesome. I've done a few videos for them in the past. This will be my first live seminar that I'm going to do for them. They tried to bring it to Shreveport last year. Schedule didn't work out. They ended up not coming. Year before that, I was scheduled. COVID, and then now finally, we're going to get it to. We're going to get some live seminars going, that's fun for me. I love to get in front of a live audience and get engagement and talk to people, and that's just what I love doing. So it'll be a fun weekend. It'll be a fun weekend.
That is fun. Well, guys, I'd like to thank everybody for tuning into the Let's Talk Fishing video podcast with Bassmaster Elite Series Pro, Derek Hudnall with that. Man, guys, I know it's raining over one half of the country right now, but get on out there and learn how to fish in the rain. You only get to live this life once, and have some fun.
That's right.
Derek, I'm going to end the podcast now, but please stick around for 2 minutes after we're done.
All right. See you guys.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in.